Broke fan repairs a stranger's engine, not knowing she's his idol testing people off camera. Leo traced the hairline crack in the garage's concrete floor with the toe of his worn-out boot. It looked like a tiny, frozen lightning bolt, a perfect metaphor for his life, permanently fractured and going nowhere fast. Every morning began with the smell of stale coffee and hot oil, a scent that clung to his clothes and his hopes. He was a good mechanic, maybe even a great one, but here he was, working under the dismissive glare of Garrett, a man whose passion for cars had been replaced by a passion for billable hours. Garrett saw engines as puzzles of profit. Leo saw them as hearts. He could hear the subtle arrhythmia in a misfiring cylinder, feel the weary sigh of an aging transmission. To him, every vehicle had a story, a soul. It was a secret language he understood, a poetry of pistons and gears that no one else seemed to appreciate. His own truck, a rusted-out pickup that coughed more than it roared, was his only sanctuary. The cab was littered with crumpled receipts, a dog-eared manual for a vintage V8, and sketches on greasy napkins. These were not doodles, they were blueprints. Blueprints for a place he called Leo's Authentic Auto, in his mind. A clean, honest shop where people were treated with respect and cars were treated with reverence. A dream as distant as the moon. His escape was the radio, or more specifically, the worn-out CD that never left the player. Serafina. Her voice was the opposite of his reality. It was a soaring, polished thing of beauty, yet her lyrics spoke of grit, of breaking free from gilded cages, of finding truth in a world of performance. Her songs were about the very authenticity he craved. One Tuesday, after a particularly grueling argument with Garrett over a timing belt he knew was still good for another 10,000 miles, Leo drove home defeated. The sun was bleeding across the horizon, painting the long, empty stretch of country road in hues of orange and purple. It was the kind of beautiful, lonely view that made a man feel small. And then he saw it. A car. Not just any car, but a pristine, cherry-red 1967 Mustang, a true classic. It was pulled over to the side of the road, its hood up like a cry for help. A lone figure stood beside it, a woman in a simple baseball cap and oversized sunglasses, looking utterly lost. Every instinct screamed at him to keep driving. He was tired. He was covered in grease. His day was done. But the sight of that beautiful machine, wounded and waiting, pulled at him. That, and the slump of the woman's shoulders. He knew that posture. It was the look of someone whose day had just fallen apart. He sighed, flicked on his turn signal, and pulled his grimy truck in behind the gleaming classic. "Trouble?" he asked, his voice rough from a day of breathing exhaust fumes. The woman jumped, startled. "Oh. Yes. It just stopped." Her voice was quiet, a little shaky. "I don't suppose you know anything about cars?" Leo offered a small, weary smile. "A little." He leaned under the hood, his senses immediately taking over. The air smelled of unburnt fuel. He ran a hand gently along the fuel line, his fingers reading the vibrations like braille. He checked the distributor cap. Clean. The spark plug wires. Secure. It was too simple. His eyes narrowed. He noticed a small, almost invisible switch tucked away near the firewall, something that was definitely not standard for a '67 Mustang. He ignored it for a moment, focusing on the obvious. "Your carburetor's not getting fuel," he said, more to himself than to her. "Should be an easy fix." He reached into his truck, grabbed a small tool kit, and within minutes, had bypassed what looked like a deliberately disconnected fuel pump relay. He reconnected a hose, tightened a clamp, and stepped back. "Try it now," he said. The woman got in, turned the key, and the engine roared to life, a perfect, throaty rumble. She let out a gasp of genuine relief. She got out of the car, pulling a wallet from her purse. "Thank you so much. What do I owe you? Please name your price." Leo shook his head, wiping his hands on an already filthy rag. "Nothing. Glad I could help." "No, I insist," she said, holding out a few $100 bills. "You saved me." He just shook his head again. It was a 5-minute fix. Wouldn't be right to take your money for that. Just pay it forward sometime. He saw her shiver slightly in the evening breeze. You look like you've been out here a while. You hungry? Before she could answer, he was rummaging in his glove box. He pulled out a slightly squashed sandwich wrapped in wax paper and a bottle of lukewarm water. It's not much. Ham and cheese. My mom made it. He broke it in half and held a piece out to her. The woman stared at the sandwich, then at his grease-stained hands, and finally at his face. He saw a flicker of something in her eyes, an emotion he couldn't quite place. Hesitantly, she took it. Thank you, she said, her voice softer now. They stood there in the fading light, on the side of a lonely road, a global superstar in disguise and a broke mechanic, sharing a squashed ham sandwich. As he chewed, Leo started humming unconsciously. It was a familiar melody, the bridge from Serafina's song, Bare Wires. The woman froze, her hand halfway to her mouth. What's that you're humming? Leo flushed, embarrassed. Oh, nothing. Just a song. It's by this singer, Serafina. You probably haven't heard of her. The woman under the baseball cap gave a slow, unreadable smile. I think I have. He drove away from the red Mustang feeling a quiet, simple satisfaction. He'd helped someone. He'd fixed a beautiful machine. It was a small victory in a long line of defeats. When he got home, his mother, Maria, was waiting for him. You're late, she said, her voice laced with the gentle worry that was her native tongue. Garrett didn't keep you again, did he? No, Mom. Just helped a lady whose car broke down on Route 7, he said, collapsing into a kitchen chair. Gave her half your sandwich. Maria smiled. That's my son. The next day at the garage, Garrett was in a foul mood. Heard you were playing roadside rescue yesterday, he sneered, tossing a greasy rag onto Leo's workbench. Hope you charged her a fortune. Those city folks in fancy cars have deep pockets. I didn't charge her anything, Leo mumbled. Garrett laughed, a harsh, barking sound. You're a fool, Leo. A first-rate mechanic with a third-rate business sense. You'll be working for me forever with that attitude. The words stung. For the rest of the week, Leo replayed the incident in his head. Garrett was right. He was a fool. He had bills to pay, a mother to support. He should have taken the money. The memory of his small act of kindness began to feel like an act of profound stupidity. He sank back into the gray routine of his life, the dream of his own shop seeming more childish than ever. Miles away, in a penthouse suite overlooking the city, Serafina sat across from her manager, a sharp-suited man named Julian. The baseball cap and sunglasses were gone. She was every inch the pop star now, but her expression was distant. The hood pop test, as you so cleverly called it, was a bust, Sarah, Julian said, scrolling through his tablet. 20 cars passed you. 4 people yelled at you to get off the road. 1 guy tried to sell you insurance. It's a waste of time. We need to focus on the tour. Serafina shook her head slowly. Not entirely a bust. She was thinking about the taste of that simple sandwich, the earnestness in the young mechanic's eyes. He hadn't just fixed her car. He had treated it with a gentle expertise that bordered on affection. And he hadn't wanted a thing. 1 kid stopped, she said. He fixed the car in 5 minutes. Refused my money. Gave me half his dinner. Julian scoffed. So you found 1 decent person in the entire state. What's the takeaway? People are 50-50? Let's get back to the pre-show interviews. He was humming my song, Serafina said quietly, interrupting him. He didn't know it was me. He just felt the music. He told me I'd probably never heard of Serafina. A rare, genuine smile touched her lips. For years she had been surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Agents, producers, handlers, fans. Their adoration was a commodity, their praise a transaction. But this boy, this grease-stained mechanic on the side of the road, had offered her pure, unvarnished kindness without a hint of expectation. He hadn't seen a celebrity. He'd just seen a person in trouble. It was the most real thing that had happened to her in a decade. Find him, she said, her voice firm. Julian raised an eyebrow. Find him? Why? I want to thank him properly, she replied, a new energy in her eyes. He reminded me of something I thought I'd lost. She remembered the name of the garage he'd mentioned in passing. A place he complained about, but the name stuck. Check a place called Garrett's Auto. 2 weeks passed. They were 2 of the worst weeks of Leo's life. Garrett fired him. The official reason was insubordination. But the real reason was that Leo had refused to charge an elderly woman for fixing a loose battery cable. He was now officially unemployed, his dream of a shop not just distant, but vaporized. He spent his days sending out applications to other garages and trying to hide the growing stack of bills from his mother. He was sitting on the sagging porch of his small house, staring at another rejection letter, when a sleek, black sedan purred to a stop at his curb. It was the kind of car that didn't belong in his neighborhood. The back door opened, and a woman stepped out. She wore an elegant silver dress that caught the afternoon light, and her sunglasses were gone. Leo's heart stopped. It was her. The woman from the side of the road. But it wasn't. It was Serafina. He stood up so fast the rocking chair nearly tipped over. His mind reeled, trying to connect the 2 images, the quiet, stranded motorist and the impossibly famous singer walking up his cracked driveway. "Hello, Leo," she said, her smile the same one he'd seen on 1,000 magazine covers. He couldn't speak. He could only stare, his mouth hanging open. From behind the sedan, a van pulled up, and a camera crew began to emerge. "I believe I owe you for a sandwich," Serafina said, her eyes twinkling. "And a repair." She explained everything. The test, her disillusionment with fame, her search for something authentic. "My team set up a simple, hit-and-kill switch in the engine," she explained. "Dozens of people passed me by. You were the only one who stopped to help without asking for anything in return. You didn't see a celebrity to exploit, you saw a person who needed a hand." She gestured to a large, official-looking document in her hand. "I heard you have a dream of opening your own place. Leo's Authentic Auto, I believe you called it once?" Leo must have mumbled it at some point. "Well, I want to be your first investor." The next few months were a whirlwind. Serafina's investment was real, a staggering sum that made Leo feel dizzy every time he looked at the bank statement. He found the perfect location, a derelict but spacious warehouse on the edge of town. But the dream came with attachments. Serafina's celebrity brought a television network into the picture. They loved the story. They wanted to produce a reality show around the garage's construction and opening. Leo, swept up in the momentum, agreed. The network sent a producer named Marcus, a man with a slick smile and eyes that saw everything in terms of ratings. Suddenly, Leo's Authentic Auto was being twisted into something unrecognizable. "We need more drama, Leo," Marcus would say. "Let's create a rivalry with that old boss of yours, Garrett. We'll have him come in and sabotage something." "No," Leo said firmly. "That's not what this is about. The logos for the tool company need to be more prominent," Marcus insisted, pointing at the wall. "And the friends you hired? They're not very telegenic. We need to recast." This was Leo's breaking point. He had hired 2 of his old friends, honest, hard-working guys who had been overlooked just like him. The thought of firing them for television made him sick. The very authenticity Serafina had admired was being systematically stripped away and replaced with a cheap, manufactured imitation. He was losing control of his own dream. He tried to explain it to Marcus, but the producer just laughed. "Son, this is how the world works. Serafina bought you a ticket to the big leagues. Don't blow it by being sentimental." The grand opening was planned as a massive media event, the finale for the show's pilot episode. Sponsors, local dignitaries, and press were all invited. Serafina was the guest of honor. The night before, Leo walked through his nearly finished garage. It was beautiful, gleaming, and felt completely hollow. It wasn't his. It was a television set. The next day, the cameras were rolling. The crowd buzzed with excitement. Marcus gave Leo a hard pat on the back. Big day, kid. Stick to the script. Smile wide. Leo felt a cold knot of dread in his stomach. He was handed a microphone to give his prepared thank you speech. He looked out at the crowd, at the bright lights, and then he saw Serafina, sitting in the front row. Her expression was polite, but he could see the same weariness in her eyes he'd seen in her penthouse suite on television. She was trapped in her gilded cage, and now, she had inadvertently locked him in one too. He took a deep breath. He couldn't do it. He dropped the note cards Marcus had given him. Thank you all for coming, he began, his voice shaking slightly. This is an incredible moment. An unbelievable gift from a person I admire more than I can say. He looked directly at Serafina. But this isn't real. A murmur went through the crowd. Marcus's smile vanished. This garage was supposed to be built on honesty, Leo continued, his voice growing stronger. On authenticity. That's the word that started this whole thing. But it's become a TV show. I was asked to create fake fights, to fire my friends because they don't look right on camera, to turn this place into one big commercial. And I won't do it. He looked at Serafina, his heart pounding. I am so grateful for this chance, more than you know. But I can't build my dream on a foundation of lies. If this is the price, then I can't pay it. I'd rather go back to fixing cars out of the back of my truck. Silence. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every agonizing second. Marcus looked like he was about to explode. Then, Serafina stood up. She walked to the stage, took the other microphone, and stood next to Leo. She turned not to the crowd, but to Marcus. He's right, she said, her voice clear and cutting. I didn't invest in a television set, Marcus. I invested in him. In his integrity. That's the brand. If you can't see that, then you've missed the entire point. She turned back to the audience. There will be no show. But this garage will open. And it will be run the way Leo sees fit. Authentically. She looked at Leo, and the smile she gave him was the same one he'd seen on the side of that lonely road. It was real. The network, faced with a public relations nightmare and the wrath of their biggest star, capitulated immediately. Marcus was gone by the end of the day. The television crew packed up and left. The aftermath was quiet. The sponsors who were only in it for the publicity pulled out, but Serafina's initial investment was more than enough. Leo, free from the constraints of television, rebuilt his dream from the ground up, his way. He hired his friends. He kept the logos small. He started a weekend program, teaching local kids the basics of auto repair for free. Leo's Authentic Auto became more than a business. It became a cornerstone of the community, a place built on trust and a genuine love for the work. 6 months later, Leo was under the hood of an old sedan, showing a wide-eyed teenager how to check her oil, his hands stained with honest grease. The bell over the door jingled. He looked up and saw the cherry-red 1967 Mustang pull into the bay. Serafina got out, dressed in jeans and a simple t-shirt. No cameras, no entourage. Heard you were the best, she said with a grin. She's making a funny clicking noise. Leo wiped his hands on a rag and leaned against the fender, a feeling of deep, profound peace settling over him. He was not rich. He was not famous. But he was happy. He was living a life that was true, a life he had built with his own 2 hands, all because he had stopped on a lonely road and shared a sandwich. He looked at the global icon who had become his friend and finally felt like he understood the lyrics she sang. He wasn't just listening to them anymore. He was living them.